Hi, welcome to Living Clean Podcast, the show to help you feel good again. I'm your host, Bonnie Wildeston-Heiss. I'm a speaker, certified holistic nutritionist, and founder of Living Clean's healthy lifestyle transformation and nutrition programs. Each week, we will destroy myths and share the truth about the food you are buying and consuming, and provide insight into the best food programs to avoid slowing you down. My purpose is to help you enjoy food again and finally achieve the results that you want. I believe that everyone deserves to enjoy mouth-watering, good-for-you food that doesn't send you running for relief. Now, let's get started. Hey guys, it's Bonnie. This week on our podcast, we're doing something a little bit different. We're gonna shift to the point where you can either watch us or you can hear us. Some people like video, they like to watch things off YouTube, and other people they're like me, they like to listen in the car. So this week we're going to shift things around with the relaunch and the grand reopening and all the new stuff happening with Living Clean. Just felt like the perfect situation to shift things. Now, something else that we're shifting is more of an awareness perspective. Over the last year, the final senior year of my degree, a lot of the classes focused on how our diet and environment are all intertwined. And if we're helping heal ourselves, we can help heal the earth, or vice versa. So if you're somebody who's struggling with illness, if you're struggling with weight management, if you're struggling with anything, if you focus and you shift your focus on how we can help the earth and the environment, perhaps that's a better angle for you to be able to help yourself. So we're going to shift things around a little bit, and I kind of wanted to give you a little bit of background and information on that to give you some insight on why. First and foremost, let's go back quite a few years. Now, I started focusing on inflammatory conditions, chronic illnesses, autoimmunity, food sensitivities, allergies, recovering from injuries, and just dietary and exercise functions and health all over in your world quite a few years ago, mostly because of my own experiences, but more so because of what I was seeing my clients go through. One of my very, very, very first clients was allergic to everything except 8 foods. They couldn't figure out what was happening, and she came for exercise, but we couldn't even do crunches. One crunch would send her diaphragm into muscle spasms. Very rare condition, and I know since then she's gone to several professionals, not just myself, and has resolved the issue, and she's been able to manage it. And I have to say, there are a rare few people who I've worked with who that hasn't happened with, and I've been blessed and I've been very lucky that these people have found solutions and resolutions. But part of the reason why is because when I work with people and when I talk to my friends who are struggling and my family members, I'm not just looking at what you're putting in your mouth. It's not just about what you put in your mouth. It's also about what you're putting in your body or on your body, what you're using as far as water sources. So if you're in a city where their water content is high in chlorine, high in fluoride, high in elements that they use within the water filtration plants to clean the water, and it's not getting properly filtered before it reaches you, then you really don't want to bathe in that water. Additionally, a lot of the homes nowadays, if you're going environmentally friendly, you're going with a gray water system, so you have to make sure you have a very high top-notch filtration system. Otherwise, what comes through the water from the recycling, from the filtration, and is returned back into your shower is not going to be beneficial for your body. It's going to provide substances within your body that we don't know what to do with. Our brains don't know what to do with. And that is the end-all, be-all of what's happening in our world right now, especially Western society. Many, many years ago, and I'm talking world wars, okay? We're out in these world wars. We've got men overseas. We've got people here. Women are now in the workforce because the guys who are working at the factory jobs, helping build the bombs and the things we need to fight this war and bring peace back to home, nobody's at home making food anymore. We didn't have the luxury. People just didn't have the luxury to do that any longer. Not only that, we were in a depression, trying to feed all these people on a very, very slim production of food because you have the dust storms and you've got all this weather happening, and essentially people in random situations were completely wiped out. And the US government needed to do something to feed the people in the US living here and to make sure the boys overseas and the ladies overseas were well fed. Government gets with the scientists and the researchers and the food people, and I'm including farmers, agricultural scientists, everybody in food people, all right? They start producing what we now consider fast food. Prepared food, things that can be stored without refrigeration, that can be freeze-dried, or that are freeze-dried and then you just rehydrate them. All of those foods. Well, back then, science was early. They're using whole food products. It was not the situation we are looking at today. Over the years, ROI and profit has overridden what the quality of the food being delivered should be. So now we're looking at arguments with Monsanto, and the FDA is getting involved, and the agricultural department is getting involved, and now the world is having issues because they're adopting more of a Western society diet, but the bulk of our diet comes from creating food that is quick, it's fast, and it's easy. Except that our perception of what is quick, fast, and easy is skewed. We have microwaves now. We have Instapots now. We have these little toaster things that you put stuff in and it steam cooks it. And it's not a convection oven. I don't know what it's called, and you have to forgive the description, but it was on one of the food plans that I wanted to order for my parents. And it's awesome, you guys. You put your food in and it steam cooks it. So it rehydrates the food, but the people who are producing the food are using real food. They're not using the chemically processed food. And that's kind of what has happened since the world wars, is our food has been continuously chemically processed. And then the next generation of food is grown from that chemically processed food. So then now it multiplies, but then the breakdown of that food, whether it comes through our bodies, through animals, somehow our bowel movements return back to that earth. Water filtration systems, sanitation systems, however it happens. If you use buckets, that works too. Regardless of how it happens, it goes back to the earth. And then it's cycled back through the earth's own biological, ecological cycle, and it returns back to the food source at some point in time. Truth be told, a few molecules of chemically processed food can stay in our world for decades. And we're talking 50 to 70 years. There are certain components in our world that can actually stay around for centuries. That's how they can date things that have happened when they find them in the ground, right? So now here we are, we have this situation, we've got all these diseases and illnesses popping up that weren't here 20, 30 years ago. Why? The biggest reason why is because over the years, quick, fast, and easy has been the goal. And quick, fast, and easy hasn't always been connected to quality. And with all of the improvements, I mean, you see my microwave right over here. I mean, with all the improvements that we have in this world in technology nowadays, there's no logical reason why any of us should be eating anything but whole foods. Now, easier said than done. I get it. We've had generation after generation after generation. We're talking 3 to 4 generations at this point. I think we're pushing 5 and 6 as well, where our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents were taught this pattern, and they've passed it down. Except what's happened is, as they've been passing that down, our bodies and our genetics have lost the ability to process those molecules. Because like I said at the beginning, chemical molecules your body doesn't know what to do with. Your brain identifies it as a foreign substance and it busts it right out of there. So if you're eating a burger that is mostly chemically processed, you are let's say we go with like Big Mac, Whopper. We're gonna go with the big guys here, all right? So let's say you go with one of those and you're looking at Whopper, fries, and a soda, right? All told, you're looking at what? 15 to 1800 calories if you get the big guys, except you're hungry in an hour or you're hungry in 2 hours. And in reality, when you eat a meal, you shouldn't be hungry for 3 to 4 hours. You should be satisfied for 3 to 4 hours. Your body should feel like, okay, we're gonna get food in 4 to 5 hours, so we'll start hunger signals right about 4. Just make sure, you know, she needs to eat. Like we're just gonna make sure you know you need to eat. When you're eating fast food, it tapers that hunger. That struggle and that balance that happens between the ghrelin and the leptin, your hunger and your satiation, you no longer have that. You lose that back and forth. And it becomes sluggish and it slows down. So your leptin is supposed to pop in and tell you, hey, stop eating. It's already slow. It already works slower than ghrelin. So if you're eating something that is quick, fast, and easy, and it's not something that's going to take a lot of time to digest, then your leptin's not going to have time to catch up. If you're gobbling it down because you're starving, your leptin's not going to have a chance to catch up, right? So we need to shift what quick, fast, and easy actually means in our brain. But in addition to that, we need to look at things that are going to heal us and heal our world. Because the healthier our world is, the healthier our food is, the healthier we are. And it's a cycle. It goes around, okay? There are basically 3 things. And I took notes because I wanted to make sure there are certain things I wanted to make sure that I mentioned during this podcast. So I'm going to write some things on the board. Those of you who are listening, you will hear me say it, you won't see it. That's the only difference here. All right, so when we're talking about autoimmune disease, there's essentially 3 things that are contributing to it, all right? Genetics play a part, but it's a minute part. So we're not talking about genetics here, okay? There is a toxic environment, there is something dietary, and this third one always gets me, intestinal bacteria imbalance. So if the bacteria, the good bacteria in our digestion system is not balanced, then our body can't digest and metabolize properly, so then it overworks itself, which overworks the adrenal system. And the adrenal system is what sparks and is a significant contribution to autoimmune conditions and dysfunctions. Okay, when you have a dysfunction, you have an imbalance in your autoimmunity, then what has happened is your adrenals have exhausted themselves. They're no longer able to work, and they really don't know what to do anymore besides shutting completely down. This can affect your thyroid. A lot of autoimmune conditions, when you are diagnosed with autoimmunity, something's up with your thyroid. Okay? These are things that can be taken care of before they happen. Unfortunately, what we're dealing with right now is a lot of us don't know and we're not aware of it until after we've reached exhaustion. And you can still manage it. You can still restore your health. It's going to take a minute, right? So I got some stats related to environmental health. Now, the food triggers for autoimmunity is processed foods, it's sweets, it's gluten, it's all those pesticides and herbicides that go into the food that's grown, and commercially grown animal products, meaning the cows, the chickens, the fish that are farmed, that are put into commercial holding tanks, essentially. and processed there. The thing with that is when you receive a farm-raised fish, let's go with the fish first. What you're getting is you're paying for the fish, you're paying for the electricity to run the farm, because the farm has to cycle and filter the water where the fish are living, because there isn't enough space for them to just run wild and swim around and do what they normally do, which would allow the earth and its natural environmental cycles, its normal ecology, to take care of the algae and the waste. Because you eat, you poop. All animals do it. The fish, they eat, they poop. A filtration system takes care of that poop. Well, what runs the filtration system? Electricity. Right now, electricity is mostly fueled by oil and gas from the earth. So we're wasting earth resources to produce these fish, right? Same exact concept happens when we're looking at commercially farmed cows and chickens. I think goats and lamb are in there too, which good luck to anyone eating them. It is not my thing. I like to pretend that animals come from a grocery store. So at some point I would probably become that vegetarian or the vegan that my sister tells me I'm going to be. But the commercially raised cows and chickens, they are raised in very tight quarters. They have to have filtration systems. They have to have air systems that circulate the air. They've got to have some way of feeding these things. They've got to have human beings that man all these things, man all the different mechanisms. So now not only do you have to worry about food miles, which is essentially how much is it going to cost to get the food from where it's grown and where it's produced to where it's sold and the consumers. Now you have to worry about how much is it going to cost me on these cows and these chickens. There's also water, you guys. I mean, you've got to use water resources, which by the way are dwindling. I heard this weekend, I think New Braunfels is about to hit stage 4 or 5. I might be wrong, I have to check into that. And effectively what's happening is we are commercially producing so much, thinking that we're doing the right thing. However, those commercially produced food products are costing us more in electricity and water than using farm pasture-raised animals, wild-caught fish, and locally grown seasonal produce for over a year. So you're looking at 1 week of commercially processed foods, commercially grown foods, using all that electricity, water, gas, you name it, versus a year of the pasture-raised, organic or natural, locally grown seasonal produce and wild-caught fish. All of which are healthier for us, better for the environment, better for our bodies. Now, when we look at toxic exposure, now we've got to look at, all right, what goes onto our bodies? Well, if the things that you are buying were originally produced, the ingredients in your lotion, the ingredients in your shampoo, the ingredients in the water you're drinking and using to bathe your body, the toners and makeup and all that, right? If all of that came from ingredients that were chemically derived or chemically processed, now what you're eating is combating what's being put on topically. Now, I have a dairy allergy. Now, my dairy allergy is not just for cows. It includes all of the animals. It didn't used to. I was slightly spoiled. It didn't used to, but now it includes all of the animals. It has progressed to the point that it includes goats and sheep and buffalo, right? When I use goat's milk lotion, goat's milk soap, goat's milk anything, that little thingy there, anywhere I've put it, I get acne, cystic acne. That's what happens. And I know I'm not alone, but it's the perfect example of what can happen when you don't pay attention to what's in your environment and how it affects the sensitivities that you have. So your diet, our diet, is very, very closely connected to the environment. So one of the things that I want to really focus on is the message that we're healing you and we're healing the environment. Because by healing you, by helping you restore health and stop fueling illness, we can help the environment. If we are no longer using and consuming the commercially produced meats and animal products, then now we're really significantly helping the environment. All right. Now here's some facts that I'm going to bring up to you that came from the the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Now, the U.S. has an environmental department. It has a carbon footprint. It mimics what is on the UN's website. And underneath this video and on the Facebook page and in the podcast listing, I'm going to upload a link that is a carbon footprint specifically related to your diet. It's a calculator. You can add up everything that you eat, include the foods that you eat currently, and then include the foods that you would like to eat. Especially if you're dealing with any sort of rash, if you're still dealing with skin conditions, if you're dealing with pain in your body in any way, shape, or form, if you know you have an autoimmune condition, a chronic illness, you have food sensitivities, allergies, or intolerances, then this is something you really want to look at. Because if you're still experiencing things, there could be something connected. And that connection is the connection between you and nature. So we've got to figure out what that connection is so that we can restore your health even further and reduce and hopefully eradicate any pain and discomfort that you're feeling. All right, so let's go through these stats. So now the number one suggestion for using your diet to help the environment and help heal yourself is to get rid of meat and dairy. Now I know that sounds extreme, and for many of us that probably is. The one thing I've learned over the last year, we've had to do carbon footprints here and there throughout the last year. And the one thing I have learned is that if you choose a vegan diet for 1 day a week, just 1 day, you significantly reduce your carbon footprint by at least a third. And considering what that would look like if all of us did that, this is all about multiplication and duplication. We're just replicating things, and we're replicating health. That's all I want you to do. All right, so what the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change says is that the increased consumption of meat and dairy in the US and the westernized states, because you guys, we're spoiled, bottom line, because it's readily available, we consume it. Well, because we consume it, they produce it. That is one of the largest contributors to global warming. So the electricity we were talking about, the water that we were talking about, that whole cycle to help produce the farm-raised animal products and the commercially raised animal products on land, it produces gases. That contributes to global warming. Now, there is a natural biological cycle that already warms the planet. We don't need to contribute to it, but we are and we have been, and now we've got to figure out a way to balance it so that future generations don't have to wear the suits that you saw in the movie about Mars. All right. Now, what the UN's climate change panel says is that a quarter of all greenhouse gases come from the production of food, right? 26%. And that's all food. 58% of it is animal products because of food emissions. So it's the emissions produced by growing and harvesting that food. We're talking commercially processed. We're not talking about organic, natural, and all that. That's another episode. We'll get there. Half of all the farmed animals contribute to this 26%. And you know which animals they are? Beef and lamb. They're the two most commercially produced, well, chickens are up there too, food products. Compressed into a room, sent down this little aisle, and they're not pasture raised. So, and what this says is that cutting out meat and dairy completely from your diet lowers your carbon footprint by 2/3. So just going vegan for one day a week reduces it by 1/3. You cut out meat and dairy completely, and now you've reduced it by 2/3. All right. Couple of things that you can do if neither of those sound appealing, which I'm assuming a lot of you are sitting here listening to me going, she's crazy. She injected a little bit of batshit crazy into that head. No, there's actually some things that you can do that helps improve your carbon footprint. It helps improve your health and your diet and your family's health, and will help reduce the impact and the symptoms felt by conditions that you're dealing with. All right. And it's actually fairly simple. So here's your 3 things. I want you to eat wild, caught, or pasture-raised animal products. That includes dairy, that includes eggs. Locally grown produce, preferably seasonal. All right, because when you eat produce that is fresh, that is grown out of season, it actually costs more to grow it. You have to use more water, you have to use more fertilizer, chemicals in the ground. Even if you're talking organic, it's still, you have to use more of the Earth's resources to grow that food. And the amount of resources we use to grow out of season food is greater than the value of the food produced. So if you go with seasonal local produce, whether it's frozen produce or whether it's, fresh, you're on the money. If you're looking at out of season, always buy frozen, because typically what will happen is the farmers will grow the produce. Part of it gets sent to the market as fresh, part of it gets sent to the market as frozen. And it's flash frozen, so that means it preserves nutrients quicker than what we will in a freezer. All right, now, one final thing, your water. Filtration systems, guys. Our refrigerators have them now. They're amazing. Snag a Brita, snag a Brita, and pop it in your fridge and start drinking the healthy water, something that is filtered out, at least part of what's coming through our faucets, because that way you're not trying to insert some fancy schmancy thing into your house. And some of them work really well, but you don't have to spend a lot of money to eat healthy, to eat so that you are lowering your carbon footprint, because eating healthy doesn't have to be expensive. Complete misnomer that it is. All right, certain things, yeah, but that's if you have autoimmunity, if you have a condition that you have allowed your body to get to, and I get it. I hate when people say that to me, but the way I ate, the way I lived my life, contributed to the food sensitivities and allergies that I deal with today. And there's a lot of things that we can actually do to not only prevent these conditions, but to manage them and to reduce their impact on our lives. So I want you guys to go out this week and start thinking about how you can reduce your impact on the environment simply by changing your diet. And those items that you're looking at, if you do those things, how will they help your health? Because when you make these choices, it should accomplish 2 things. Improving your health and fighting off disease, right? So feeding health, not illness. Feeding health, starving illness. Let's go with that. And feeding the health of our earth and our environment, and starving illness for the earth as well. This cycle, we feed off each other. If we can feed off the healthy parts of our world, we get better and the world gets better. And maybe by hearing this message, instead of looking at it like I have to do this and I can't believe I have to give this up, or I have to give that up, or I don't really want to do this and this is going to be overwhelming, and maybe if we just think outside the box for a minute and look at it from a completely different angle, this isn't just about you getting better. If you get better, everything around you gets better. So maybe by focusing on a bigger picture, it will help your health and help you feel better quicker. All right, you guys, if you have questions, as always, let me know. I'm always here to listen. I'm always here to answer questions. And I will chat with y'all next week.
Thank you for listening. Did you love this episode? If so, share this with a friend or someone you think would find it helpful. Leave a review on iTunes, Anchor, Stitcher, or Google Play, and let me know your honest thoughts, questions, and takeaways. Not a fan? I'd still love to hear your feedback. Disagree with anything you've heard? I would love to hear your experience on social media. If you feel like you're still struggling with your health goals, send me a message or check out livingclean.com for details about our nutrition and well-being programs for busy lifestyles. Stop struggling and start enjoying food again. See you next time.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.